Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to learn how to put the 2-inch lift kit on an RD1. So a 1996 to 2001 Honda CR-V. Now to start, we're going to pull the tire off. Once the tire is off, we're going to pull the upper control arm off. Disconnect everything. Once that's disconnected, we're going to disconnect the fork down below, and then we'll start disconnecting the top of the shock tower. Taking the fork off from the shock tower, or the shock itself. So after disconnecting the fork from the strut, come up top, and I'll pull out the two 14mm bolts, or nuts, off the shock tower to drop it out, and then we will put the 1.5-inch spacer in. Okay, now we will take the 1.5-inch puck spacer and we will mount it to the top of the strut. We have the top spacer in and bolted down. Now spacer's up there, as you can tell. Then you got the shock and strut. Now we will mount the fork back on, and then we'll get ready to mount everything back together. So now I forgot to mention, you also want to disconnect your axle nut. Pound it back a little bit. I also disconnected so you had a little bit more room to play with the lift kit, right? I still have the brake line connected. I still have play on it, so we're good. Nothing is crazy on that. But for the most part, I disconnected the tie rod, the upper control arm, and the axle nut. Then I hit the axle nut, so it came out. Everything's still intact, so all I have to do is pop it in. Now what I did is I set the fork up, put the bolt in down below. As you can see, the puck's up top. Then you got the shock and strut down to the fork. Now you can't quite get it there. You can press down a bit and press it in, but you'll have to get a hammer, and you also have to get a jack for underneath the lower control arm. You'll need to jack up on the lower control arm with a little bit of pressure and hit that with the hammer. Once you hit that with the hammer, she should just slide right into place. Okay, just to show you what I did, I've got the vehicle jacked up. I've got a little jack on the bottom, jacked up. I put my foot on this piece here. Show you exactly what I was doing. Give it a little more height on it. And put my foot against it. There we go. Now she's more in. Just keep smacking and jacking and she'll slide right up in. Copper coat. Everything. One thing I forgot to mention. Every nut and bolt. Then you'll never have a problem. Here's another thing. Invest in a paint pen. That way, when you do things, you can mark everything that you do, and then if you want to check it out at a later date and time, you'll know if anything has moved. That's what I like to do. Don't have to. Product. Axle nuts back on. Top nuts on, your spacer's in, tightened up. Everything else is on, except for the last bolt on the fork. Once I tighten that up, we put the tire on, and the tie rod, of course. The last two things to do, and we're done. Yes, it is rubbing a bit, but once you drop everything down, it'll pull away. When you're done, just a couple ugga-tuggas. Well, I probably couldn't even see that. A couple ugga-tuggas and you're good to go. Now, I always want to do this. She's nice and gouged good. And now your final product. Look at that gap. Woo! Okay, everybody. So for the back of the CRV, to go ahead and put the 2-inch spacers in, pretty much these are the only tools you'll need. A socket or an impact, one of the two. 3/4 socket for the lug nuts, and a 14 mil socket for the other bolts that we need in behind. Your spacer, some copper coat or anti-seize, an extra jack to jack up the lower control arm, and a breaker bar in case your gun or your muscles aren't strong enough. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and we will start taking everything apart and show you everything as we go. I lied. You get that bottom bolt out, instead of putting your hand on it, put the wrench on it and pull it out. Just like that. Now to the inside. Look at all the junk in here. Here's one. There's two. Take those with us. Two nuts off to the side for now, and booyah, out. Then Put that down. Take your puck. Drop it on top. A 14mm wrench. Done. Now, little side trick. Losing my mind. Okay, well, we'll try something different since I seem to be losing my mind. So what I'll do is we'll take the nut off. Usually what I'm trying to do, I can't find my tape. But what I'll do is I'll tape the nut because I believe I got the first gen setup of this puck lift from Mitch. So for the most part, these nuts, or well, these bolts aren't actually welded to the puck. So it is a little bit of a pain in the ass and a little bit of dinking around. Ultimately, it isn't that bad. What I'll do is push it up, get it aligned with the hole. I would sit a little crooked. I'm gonna go around on the inside and button it up. Conveniently, once I have it done, I already found the tape. So, tape's up to you, all depending on what set you get. It is what it is. So now, I've got everything in. I just have to tighten everything up and bolt it, besides the lower control arm. So I'm going to go on the inside, I'm going to tighten everything up, and then I'm going to come out here, we'll put the jack on the bottom, slap the bolt in, put the tire on, and then jump to the other side, and the lift kit is complete. Shock tower in. I use this for safety. It doesn't need to be there. It wasn't even working in sessions, but I always have that risk of something ever happening to a jack and a jack fucking fall. So. got that, but I need the bar. There might be some dinking around to do when it comes to this, but for the most part, all you gotta do. But also what would help is make sure the truck's not too high off the ground. You got the other tire still on. So you got the other tire off and you're jacking up off the center, the vehicle will just sway and you won't get that compression in. So if you have it just a little bit off the ground, when you do jack up the lower control arm, it will pick the vehicle up. The tire will touch on the other side, but it'll still keep that negative pressure, I guess you would call it, against it, so you won't have nothing crazy happen. Oh, look at that. I'm hooked on phonics. So same thing for the other side as I showed you on the passenger side. I've disconnected the lower control arm, spun the nut loose, but didn't take it out, dropped it, pulled the upper shock tower out, placed on the new 2-inch spacer. Now I'll pull the nuts off, I'll put everything into place, I'll bolt up the shock tower. Then we will put the jack underneath like shown before and jack up to put back to where it needs to be, and we are done. Officially done. Now just to lower it and put the tire on. Wow. Look at that travel.